I'm pretty sure I have the Amazing Digital Circus figured out. Now, I know that's a pretty cocky way to start a theory video about a show that only has 2 episodes out and has barely got the ball rolling on world building, but since the pilot, this show has reminded me of another cartoon I love dearly. And those similarities have only gotten stronger with episode 2. Those similarities influence my theories, and I just can't shake the feeling that I might be on the right track. So today, not only do I want to reveal the secret to escaping the Amazing Digital Circus, but also what I believe is the cure to abstraction and what I think the message of this show will ultimately end up being. Buckle up, because this is either going to age super well or super poorly. To me, the Amazing Digital Circus is basically Infinity Train, but with retro computer games instead of train cars. Slight spoilers ahead, but if you're a fan of both cartoons, you're already picking up what I'm putting down. Main character ends up trapped in a strange new world that they willingly entered. They're surrounded by a colorful cast of characters, some being human just like them, and others being NPCs created by the ringleader of this place. AI that are just meant to help the passengers and players respectively, but have their own thoughts, memories, and emotions. Some of them even enduring an existential crisis. Characters try to venture out of the intended area for humans, but instead of an exit, all they'll be met with is hopeless endeavors where danger lurks at every corner. The guy calling the shots is a jovial AI with a sinister vibe to him, who clearly has gone kinda crazy himself. He doesn't realize how flawed the system he upkeeps really is, as he continues to create a multitude of locations and scenarios for the humans to explore. Go on an adventure, learn a lesson, you get the idea. Not to mention the train picks passengers based off their issues and actions, like running away from home to avoid dealing with a divorce, letting your brother get bullied by your peers so you can fit in, shoplifting as a way to lash out and get attention from your parents, etc. And based off Gooseworks stating that Jax is the character who deserves to be in the circus the most, I have a feeling that the circus operates on similar logic. I'm not saying it's a knockoff or that it's even intentional, don't sit Goose on me yet, but the similarities are there. Look at these comparisons like ice cream. Moose Tracks might remind you of Rocky Road, but they're still 2 different flavors doing their own thing. They just both hit the spot in a way that only those flavors can. Anywho, while brainstorming these comparisons, something hit me. So like, in Infinity Train, all these passengers spawn in with numbers on their hands, right? And the key to getting off the train is mowing down that number by going through the different train cars and properly fulfilling each task, as doing so usually means making decisions that pushes you to grow and fight against whatever toxic tendencies landed you on the train in the first place. It actually takes the first protagonist, Tulip, a second to realize this, as she's initially just speeding through the train cars and isn't following proper instructions. Mainly because when Tulip came onto the train, 1-1 was unknowingly dealing with the coup. He wasn't the conductor, so passengers weren't waking up in their designated pods, with welcome videos explaining the whole ordeal. Likewise with the Amazing Digital Circus, for some reason, the tutorial to the game is missing. POMNI is just dropped in. Something is off. And also with Infinity Train, 2 of the later, protagonists have a pretty warped perception of the train and don't take any of the cars seriously at all. They don't recognize the denizens as people, and with how high their numbers are, they may never get off the train. Might remind you of a certain lilac bunny. I think this all applies to the Amazing Digital Circus pretty easily, especially since it's, a video game. Instead of passengers having to progress through train cars and get their number down, the player base just have to play the game and beat it to return home. And I do believe there's a way to beat this game. There's just one problem. You're playing the game wrong. Or I guess they're playing the game wrong. These little goobers right here. Something consistent in the 2 episodes we have so far is that the gang is pretty resistant to Kane's adventures, especially with how wacky and batshit insane they can get. I think that's because they don't get the purpose of these adventures. If Ragatha's thoughts are an indicator of anyone else's, then they believe that these hijinks are just something to pass the time, keeping the players busy so they don't go insane and ultimately abstract. But I think that's the wrong point of view for them to have, especially since they're, trapped here. If it's a video game, then shouldn't these adventures be missions? And you can't beat a video game unless you complete missions, level up, and progress in the campaign. It's like when I was a kid playing the Raimi Spider-Man games and just swinging around the city fighting thugs for hours on end, instead of, doing what the game actually wanted me to do. Yeah, I didn't beat a lot of games as a kid.
I'm going to die!
The thing is, in both the pilot and second episode, the gang is putting up with the adventures, but they're not engaging with them the way Kane, or more so the developers, intended. I don't think it's enough to just be present and make it to the finish line. It can't be a half-hearted effort. Missions tend to have a list of objectives in a ton of games. If you do the bare minimum, you tend to get less rewards, less experience to level up, and in some cases, new missions or locations won't be unlocked. Let's also keep in mind that a lot of games have main missions and side missions, which tend to provide different rewards and different incentives. Applying this to the show itself, let's look at the whole Gather the Gloinks adventure from the pilot. I suspect that this might have been a side mission with an emphasis on team building. Given that Kane told Zubul it was optional, it was confined to the tent where they all live, and the best way to collect all these critters would have been teamwork and cooperation, which the episode makes a point to show is something they all struggle with. And wouldn't you know it, their reward is a banquet, a buttload of food to share with one another. Kinda thematic if you ask me, and an appropriate reward for a side mission. It's nothing crazy, just some grub to refill HP. I think that tracks. Meanwhile, we have our taste of a main mission in episode 2 with the Candy Canyon Kingdom. I fully believe that this adventure was designed to teach the gang a lesson in empathy and compromise, things that Jax especially doesn't excel at, and again, he apparently deserves to be here the most. Now, I believe that exercising empathy was the intent behind this adventure for a few reasons. Number 1, the premise of the mission was just to recover the maple syrup from the 3 crocodile bandits, as it's the Candy Canyon Kingdom's most cherished resource. But we learn that the Crocs are robbing this syrup for their mom. They have their own sympathetic backstory that the players were meant to respond to. Kane was excited that he was testing out new AI in this one, presumably Gummy Goo and his brethren, claiming that it should be 57 times more immersive. He wants the gang to be engaged with these adventures for a reason. They just don't know why. I doubt he even knows why on account of him being cuckoo bananas. He's just acting off his programming. Like 1-1 in the first season of Infinity Train. See, these comparisons mean something. I'm working with what I know. Number 3, and this one is a bit of a stretch. Although Kane swiftly despawns Gummy Goo, explaining that humans and NPCs can't coexist in the tent, he doesn't seem to be fazed by the squad befriending Gummy Goo. He even remarks that he knows that the humans love their NPCs, despite the Crocs being their adversaries. It's like he anticipated that they would all make amends by the end of the adventure. Kane intended for the circus crew to learn about Gummy Goo's tragic backstory and share the resources, splitting it between the kingdom and the Crocs, which POMNI technically accomplished, albeit indirectly by exploiting glitches and bringing back the duplicated syrup tanker to the surface, which of course was filled with syrup, so everybody won. No tough calls had to be made, no violence was necessary, sorry Jax, and the lesson at hand at least reached POMNI, even though it was through unorthodox means.
We're just obstacles, created to be defeated and forgotten.
Well, you don't have to be.
If it wasn't for POMNI, this adventure would have just mainly been Jax wreaking chaos, kicking ass, and turning in the Croc Bros without much of a conversation or understanding. POMNI is the one who's playing the game right, fulfilling all the objectives instead of just rushing to the finish line, which is ironic given that she broke the game in the process. This might be why the story's starting here, with POMNI's arrival. She's the one who's putting the gang on the right track and guiding them to victory without even realizing it. She's the key to their escape. If the squad wants any chance at escaping the game, they need more adventures like this, where they reach peaceful resolutions. And less of stuff like the Gloinks where they're constantly derailed from the focus of the mission and are just stumbling their way through it. I also find it telling that we didn't see the reward for their adventure in this episode. Could the next episode open with POMNI leveling up or getting rewarded with something that's not fake food? I'd love to see that. Maybe King will clarify that POMNI's display of empathy is putting her ahead of the rest on some sort of leaderboard, causing the other players to breed resentment. Although honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if even Kane himself isn't aware that how the players go about completing a mission is tied to their progress and eventual escape. But the man is clearly hiding secrets, so it could go either way. Maybe they didn't show us the reward here because they purposely don't want us to know. And they're saving it for a big reveal later in the season, if not season 2, where we get confirmation that yes, the gang was playing the game wrong. POMNI is putting them on track, and now they're playing it right so that they can finally beat the game and leave. Also, calling it now, Kane's gonna be the final boss. Big surprise, I'm sure. As I touched on in the intro, something else I've been itching to talk about after episode 2 is Abstraction. Not to whip out the comparison card again, as like with Infinity Train, I'm sure it's more of a coincidence than anything, but Abstraction really reminds me of Corruption from Steven Universe. Come on, characters are susceptible to turning into monsters who lose control of themselves and attack innocent people, and the whole ordeal is linked to their mental states, and not even the most powerful character in the show can cure it on his own? They have stark differences for sure, like how corruption only happens to gems in Steven Universe, while abstraction can only happen to human players in Digital Circus. But I know I'm not the only one who sees the resemblance. All of that being said, I do think this newly released second episode spelled out to the audience what the cure to abstraction is.
It's friendship.
Kinda. Let me explain. It's been stated that abstraction is more or less caused by mental instability. The minds of humans within the circus are one of the few things that Kane can't control. So when a human psychological state collapses, they abstract. That tracks to me. I imagine that one's mind is pretty much the link between the real world and the digital world. Like, we don't know if their physical bodies are actually in a hospital, hooked up to life support while they're in the game, Sword Art Online style, or if time is just irrelevant in the circus, and whatever they're experiencing in the game is happening in an instant on Earth. Or if their bodies got virtualized into the game itself, Kolyoko style. But in any case, I imagine their mind has to remain healthy and intact if they're going to have any hope of returning to the real world. So if the mind goes insane, the link to both worlds would get disrupted and, well, they turn into that. However, I think that going insane is just one step in abstracting. I think what really pushes someone over the edge is a feeling that's explicitly stated in the second episode, while POMNI and Gummy Goo are outside the map.
I guess I just don't want you to feel like you're nothing. I don't want anybody to feel like that.
Feeling like you're nothing is what pushes you over to abstract. Let's think about it. Kaufmo went insane from trying to find an exit. The hopelessness of the situation broke him. But what would go through someone's head in those final moments? Probably something like, oh God, I'm never getting out of this place. Am I even real anymore? Was I ever real? Or am I no different than an NPC now? Or have I always been? I don't exist. I don't matter. I'm just a part of this game. I'm nothing. And I think POMNI's already starting to feel this way, thanks to the absurdity of this world and Kane's sociopathic behavior. But maybe she felt like that before she even put on the headset, already feeling worthless from real-life circumstances prior to all of this madness. And that feeling is only amplified by the circus. She doesn't know what's real and what's fake here. She doesn't know who's real or who's an NPC that feels real, but is really just another illusion conjured up by Kane, who can be taken out at a literal snap of a finger. She doesn't know who she should trust, or at least, she didn't, until Kaufmo's funeral. This was the moment POMNI's reminded of the fact that no matter how confusing her reality might get, the people she's surrounded by are real, and the friendships they have, the bonds they share, are real too. And they're all going through it. They're all grieving. They're all human. Probably. It's not that they're all ignoring the gravity of the situation, that they don't care about how fucked up this all is. It's not that they're treating all of this like it's normal. They were all blindsided and thrust into this city situation like POMNI. And while they're stuck here, all they can do is make the best of the situation by enjoying the time they have together. They haven't gone completely insane because they have each other as a support system. Though Jax clearly has some work to do. This is why I say the cure to abstraction is friendship. Your friends can help remind you of your worth and reassure you that you're not nothing, that you are a real human being who's worthy of the life they were given. But just waving your hands in the air and screaming, "Friendship!" doesn't explain how the abstractions will be fixed. Without things like glitches, clipping through walls, and things that are usually associated with game exploits are a part of the show's lore, I have a hunch that curing those who have abstracted or are in the process of abstracting will involve something like the debug menu, which you probably already know is meant to help find and fix bugs in a program. In video games, it's usually used for changing configuration, cheating, or finding scrapped content. You know, fun stuff. I imagine something on the magnitude of Abstraction would definitely be considered a bug. It just seems like something the show would go for. As for how they access this debug menu, I have no idea. The show has to feed us more lore first before I can put those pieces together. But I think when it comes to actually debugging someone who's abstracted, given its ties to the mental state and feeling of nothingness, I imagine the friends of those who abstracted would help remind them of who they are and the worth they have. If abstraction could mean losing sight of who you are, maybe your friends can help restore you piece by piece by sharing good memories and their favorite traits about them. You know, like they did at the funeral. So we already know they're pretty good about that. Except Jax, maybe they'll be important. Now this could be depicted in a totally wild way, like the gang getting strapped with compliment blasters or whatever, but something in this vein is what I'm picturing. They gotta debug, maybe go inside of the mind of the abstracted, and hit them with the good vibes. Or maybe once someone's totally abstracted, they're lost forever. They're brain dead. And debugging can only help those who are in the process of abstracting. That'd be kinda wild, but it would add stakes to the whole process. Guess we'll just have to wait and see. But all of this brings me to the message of the Amazing Digital Circus. What's it going for? Well, I think this show is ultimately going to be a celebration of online friendships. The beauty in having a tight-knit friend group that's always connected, despite being scattered across the country, if not the globe. Let's really put this all out on the table. In a way, this show is about a group of people who are chronically online by force, going by screen names instead of their real names, struggling with their mental health, questioning their self-worth, but ultimately relying on the bonds they share with each other and going on adventures to get through the day. Sounds like an allegory for online friendships to me. You'll always see takes on social media saying something to the effect of,
"Online friendships don't last more than a few years. Don't get too invested. Blah, blah, blah. I'm boring."
only for thousands of people to pull over receipts that prove that just isn't true. Look, touching grass is important. Internet safety is important. I'm not saying all your friendships should be online or anything of the sort, but I am saying some of my longest friendships on this planet were forged through the internet. People who were my age who shared my interest that ended up becoming some of my closest friends. Some of them I get to see at cons and weddings, and some of them are practically my neighbors now. Like I moved out of my hometown 2 years ago, and although the cost of living in a big city sucks, I get to spend every day with a friend group that formed all the way back in the Steven Universe days. People that have been in my life for nearly 8 years now, who I've entered adulthood with. And although only 2 of those years have been spent frequently in person, those 6 other years where most of the time we were just shooting this shit over text, those still matter. Those friendships were never invalidated by distance. And I mean, look at Glitch Productions, and really the whole indie scene. Nay, the whole content creation scene. So many projects are made by a team of people who are all over the world, yet they're making something real, something tangible. And that teamwork and the bonding that happens while bringing these projects to life are, you guessed it, real! I think you get the point. This show goes out to everyone in their Discord groups playing Fortnite or Jaxbox or binging TV together for hours on end. It's a show that recognizes the value of online friendships, online families. It acknowledges that yes, those people can also be a shoulder to cry on. They can be people you depend on. They can be lifesavers. And I really rock with that. I can't wait to see where the show takes that message with its storytelling. But for now, these are just my thoughts, and I would love to hear yours. What are your theories surrounding the Amazing Digital Circus? How do you think they can escape from the game or cure abstraction? What's your take on episode 2? Let us know in the comments down below, and keep the conversation going over on Twitter and Instagram at RoundtableVids and at AwestruckVox. Shout out to Chinky Bones for another phenomenal thumbnail. I commissioned this from the months ago. I'm sorry it took so long for this to get out, Bone. I was, lazy. give them a follow. Or maybe if you're, I don't know, someone who works in the show, give them a job. They're pretty good at drawing, I don't know. Links to their Twitter in the description. If you enjoyed this video, throw a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace.